Welcome back to The Reckoning, where we uncover the ultimate stories of justice. Today, we have a powerful submission from a viewer, a narrative titled The $61 Million Reckoning. This is the story of Sylvia Reed, an exploited mother who turns a lottery win into a weapon of mass dignity. If you've ever been taken for granted, this is the victory you've been waiting for. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any part of Sylvia's story. And if you have a story of ultimate justice or transformation, send it to us now at womensstories@sagmail.com. The day my greedy son and his wife won $61 million in the lottery, they kicked me out with the words, "We don't need your pathetic pension cash anymore. Just go die somewhere else." They went pale when I laughed and said, "Sweetie, did you even read whose name is on that lottery ticket? If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from." Let me backtrack and tell you how we got to this delicious moment of justice. 3 weeks ago, on a wet December morning in Willow Creek, Oregon, I was doing what I'd done every Friday for 35 years, buying my weekly lottery ticket at the Quick Stop. Same numbers I'd played since 1990, same ritual, same hopeful little prayer to whoever might be listening upstairs. My name is Sylvia Reed, but everyone calls me Syl. I'm 65, widowed 3 years now, and living in what my daughter-in-law Tiffany likes to call our extended stay suite, though guests usually aren't expected to hand over their entire Social Security check as rent. "Morning, Mrs. Reed," called Joel from behind the counter. At 30, he still remembered when I used to bring my son Brady in for penny candy. "The usual," I replied. "You bet." I handed him my $5, watching as he printed my ticket. Those numbers, 5, 12, 21, 30, 44 with Powerball 16, they meant something. 5 for the day I met Robert. 12 for the day Brady was born, 21 for our wedding anniversary, 30 for the house number where we raised our family, 44 for the years we had together, 16 for Brady's age when he graduated high school. So proud and full of promise. Back then, I never imagined those numbers would become my weapon of mass destruction. "Cross your fingers for me, Joel," I said, tucking the ticket into my purse. "Always do, Mrs. Reed. You're due for some good luck." If only he knew how prophetic those words would be. Walking home through the December dampness, I passed the house Robert and I had shared for 40 years. The new owners had painted it a harsh, trendy gray. Robert would have hated that. He always said, "Our white house with black shutters looked dignified, like a place where decent people lived and raised their children with respect and values." The irony wasn't lost on me that I was now living with the child I'd raised in that dignified house, and he was treating me like an unwanted burden. Tiffany's a high-end vehicle brand SUV was in the driveway. Through the kitchen window, I could see her on her phone, gesturing wildly, probably talking to her sister about their latest discretionary vacation, or complaining about having to share their house with Brady's ancient mother. "Syl, is that you?" Tiffany's voice carried that particular edge it got when she was annoyed, which was most of the time these days. "Just me," I called back, though I wanted to add, "Sorry for existing in your precious house." But I didn't, because I'd learned over these past 3 years that sometimes survival means keeping your mouth shut and your dignity intact. The day Robert died changed everything, though I didn't realize it at first. Grief has a way of blinding you to the vultures circling overhead. Robert's funeral was on a Tuesday in December 3 years ago. Brady gave a lovely eulogy about his father being a good provider. Tiffany wore black and dabbed her eyes at appropriate moments, though I'd never seen her cry actual tears over anything that didn't involve her credit card being declined. "Mom, you can't stay in that big house alone," Brady said, as we drove home from the cemetery. It's not practical. The upkeep, the lawn care, the snow removal, Tiffany chimed in from the front seat. At your age, Sil, those things become dangerous. Besides, we have plenty of room. The guest bedroom hardly gets used, and you could help with the grandkids when they visit. Help with the grandkids. That should have been my first clue. The guest room was nice enough. Pale yellow walls, white furniture. The first month was pleasant. I cooked dinner most nights, did the housework. But by the second month, the requests started coming. Sil, could you watch Emma and Jake? Sil, could you pick up our dry cleaning? Slowly, efficiently, I was being transformed from house guest to unpaid domestic staff. The breaking point came the following summer. Sil, we need to talk about the financial arrangement, Tiffany announced one morning over coffee. She'd laid out papers on the kitchen table like she was conducting a business meeting. What kind of arrangement? I asked, though my stomach was already sinking. Living expenses, your share of utilities, food, household maintenance. It's only fair that you contribute proportionally to what you use. She slid a paper across the table, an itemized list of monthly expenses with my share highlighted in yellow. $800 for rent of the guest room, $200 for utilities, $300 for food and household supplies, $300 total, which happened to be exactly $50 less than my monthly Social Security check. I signed the financial agreement because what choice did I have? By fall, I was doing all the shopping, most of the cooking, and all of the cleanup. When they entertained Tiffany's friends, I was expected to serve drinks and appetizers, then disappear upstairs so the adults could have their sophisticated conversations. The ultimate insult came in November, during one of Tiffany's dinner parties. As I was collecting empty glasses, I overheard her talking to her friend Jenna. It's actually worked out perfectly, Tiffany was saying. Sil handles all the domestic stuff, watches the kids when they're here, and her Social Security covers most of her expenses. It's like having live-in help, except she pays us for the privilege. Jenna laughed. That's brilliant. You should write a book, How to Monetize Your Mother-in-Law. Something crystallized inside me. This was exploitation, pure and simple. But I didn't say anything that night. I just carried the glasses to the kitchen, loaded the dishwasher, and went upstairs to my room. December arrived with an early blizzard, and Tiffany's announcement that they were converting the basement into a mother-in-law suite for me. You'll have so much more privacy, she explained, spreading architectural drawings across the dining room table. Your own space, your own entrance, almost like your own apartment. The basement. They wanted to move me to the basement. Brady hovered nearby, looking uncomfortable. The contractor says it'll be finished by spring, and you'll have the kitchenette, so you won't need to use the main kitchen as much. Translation: isolate me completely. What if I don't want to move to the basement? I asked. Tiffany's smile tightened. Well, Sil, we've been thinking about that too. This arrangement has been working well, but if you wanted to explore other options, we'd understand. Other options. At my age, with $50 a month in discretionary income, my options were limited. They had me trapped, and they knew it. That Friday, I walked to the quick stop with more determination than usual. Same numbers as always, I told Joel. I tucked the ticket into my wallet. Cross your fingers for me, Joel. This could be your week. The winning numbers were announced Friday night at 10:59 p.m. Tonight's Powerball jackpot was $61 million. The numbers are 5, 12, 21, 30, 44, and Powerball 16. My hands were shaking as I reached for my purse, pulling out the lottery ticket. There they were, printed in black and white. 5, 12, 21, 30, 44, PB 16, $61 million. I sat there staring at the ticket, waiting for the reality to sink in. After 35 years of hope and $5 investments, I had finally won. My first instinct was to run downstairs and tell Brady and Tiffany. Then I remembered where I was sitting and why and how I'd gotten there. In their house, paying them $1,300 a month rent while serving as unpaid domestic help, scheduled to be moved to the basement in the spring because my presence in their lives had become inconvenient. Maybe I should keep this information to myself for a little while, just until I figured out what winning $61 million meant for my future. I slipped the ticket back into my wallet and turned off the TV. By dawn, I had the beginnings of a plan. The universe was about to deliver justice. Saturday morning arrived with typical chaos. Emma and Jake were visiting for the weekend, which meant Tiffany would disappear to get her nails done while I supervised breakfast, entertainment, and general child management. "Morning, Sil," Tiffany said, already dressed in her non-disclosed athleisure brand workout clothes. "I'm heading to Pilates, then the salon. Can you handle the kids?" "Of course," I replied, same as always. Brady was in his home office catching up on work emails before his golf game. The children were in the living room, still in their pajamas, arguing about what to watch on the television, a non-disclosed electronics brand. It was during this perfectly ordinary Saturday morning chaos that Tiffany decided to tidy up the kitchen, which included emptying my purse to look for a non-disclosed grocery store loyalty card I'd used earlier in the week. "Sil, where did you put that a non-disclosed grocery store card?" she called, rifling through my belongings. "It should be in the side pocket," I called back, focused on mediating the TV remote dispute between Emma and Jake. "Found it. And oh my goodness, what is this?" Something in Tiffany's voice made me look up. She was standing by the kitchen counter holding my lottery ticket, her face pale with shock. "Is this... Did you buy a lottery ticket?" My stomach dropped, but I kept my expression neutral. "I buy one every week. Same numbers for 35 years. Tiffany was staring at the ticket like it was radioactive. "Sil, do you know what the winning numbers were last night?" Before I could answer, she was grabbing her phone, frantically searching online. "Oh my God! Oh my God! Brady!" Her shriek brought Brady running from his office, his golf shirt half-buttoned, hair still messy from sleep. "What's wrong? Is someone hurt?" "The lottery ticket?" Tiffany thrust the ticket at him with trembling hands. "Look at the numbers. Look at last night's drawing." Brady took the ticket, frowning as he read the numbers. His frown deepened as Tiffany showed him her phone screen with the winning combination. The silence in the kitchen stretched like taffy, broken only by Emma asking if anyone was going to make pancakes. Finally, Brady looked up at me, his expression unreadable. "Mom, do you realize what this means?" I realized exactly what it meant. The only question was whether they did. The next hour was pure chaos, and I watched it all unfold from my seat at the kitchen table like I was viewing someone else's life through a window. Tiffany was pacing the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, talking to what sounded like every person in her contact list. 61 million, yes, million. We won the lottery. We won. That was interesting. Brady had taken the ticket from Tiffany and was examining it like a forensic expert, comparing the numbers on his phone screen over and over. "This is real," he kept muttering. "This is actually real." Emma and Jake, sensing something momentous was happening, had abandoned their TV dispute and were standing in the kitchen doorway, eyes wide with confusion and excitement. "Are we rich now?" Emma asked. "We're very rich, sweetheart," Tiffany said, scooping her up for a spin around the kitchen. "We'll never have to worry about money again." I found myself thinking about Robert, wondering what he would make of this scene. Probably something dry about chickens counting themselves before the eggs were even laid. Robert had always been cautious about assuming outcomes before understanding all the variables. "Mom," Brady said, still clutching the ticket, "we need to call a lawyer and a financial advisor and probably an accountant. There are taxes to consider and claiming procedures and we should probably call that contractor and upgrade the basement plans," Tiffany interrupted, her voice breathless with excitement. "I mean, if we're millionaires, we don't need to go with the cheapest options anymore. We can put in custom granite." The basement again. Even in the midst of what they thought was life-changing good fortune, they were still planning to move me to the basement. "Actually," Tiffany continued, her voice taking on that particular tone she used when she was working through a financial problem, "we should probably think bigger than the basement. I mean, with this kind of money, we could buy a bigger house, something with a proper mother-in-law wing, or—" her voice brightened, "we could look into one of those nice, non-disclosed high-end senior communities for SIL, the expensive ones where they have activities and medical care and everything." Ah, there it was. The money was going to buy them a more elegant way to get rid of me. Brady nodded enthusiastically. "That's a great idea, Mom. You'd probably be happier with people your own age, right? And we could afford one of the really nice places now, the kind Robert would have wanted for you." I watched my son and daughter-in-law make plans for my future, using money they assumed belonged to them to solve a problem they'd created by treating me like an inconvenience. The irony was so perfect it almost made me laugh out loud. "There's just one small detail we should probably address," I said quietly. Both of them turned to look at me, expressions expectant and slightly impatient, like parents listening to a child who was interrupting adult conversation. "The lottery ticket," I continued calmly, "is in my name." The silence that followed was different from before. This wasn't the shocked silence of unexpected good news. This was the horrified silence of people realizing they'd made a terrible assumption. "What do you mean?" Tiffany asked slowly. I held out my hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Brady placed the ticket in my palm. "I mean," I said, looking down at the familiar numbers that had just transformed from hope into power, "that I bought this ticket with my money, from my purse, using the numbers I've played for 35 years, which makes it mine." Tiffany's face went through several fascinating color changes. But you live here. We're family. That money, it changes everything for all of us." "No," I said, standing up from the kitchen table with more dignity than I'd felt in 3 years. "It changes everything for me." The look of dawning realization on their faces was something I knew I'd treasure for years to come. The moment they understood that their unpaid housekeeper, their soon-to-be basement dweller, their convenient source of monthly rent money, had just become independently wealthy, and they were about to find out that $61 million could buy a lot more than a nice house. It could buy freedom, it could buy justice, and it could buy the most satisfying revenge a mother had ever served to ungrateful children. "Mom," Brady said carefully, "let's not get ahead of ourselves here. Yes, technically the ticket is in your name, but we're family. We share things. We support each other." "Support each other?" I almost laughed out loud. "Like when you supported me by charging me $300 a month to live in your guest room. Or when you supported me by planning to move me to the basement." "You're absolutely right," I said sweetly. "We do support each other, which is why I've been supporting you with my Social Security check every month while doing all your housework and childcare for free." Tiffany's business brain was working overtime. "Sil, darling, I think there's been a misunderstanding about our living arrangement. The monthly contribution you make? That's not rent. That's just your share of household expenses. We've never thought of you as a tenant. Is that so?" I tucked the lottery ticket back into my wallet with deliberate care. Then I suppose you won't mind if I stop contributing to household expenses immediately, since I'm family, not a tenant. Brady stepped forward. Mom, let's all take a breath here. This is huge news. Life-changing news. We need to think through the implications carefully. Oh, I've been thinking, I said. For starters, I concluded that $61 million is enough money to live very comfortably for the rest of my life without depending on anyone else for housing. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. You're not serious, Tiffany whispered. You wouldn't just leave, not after everything we've done for you. I'm very serious, I said. In fact, I'm planning to call the lottery office first thing Monday morning to claim my prize, and then I'm going to start looking for a place of my own. Sunday morning arrived with Tiffany in full crisis management mode. She'd obviously spent the night strategizing because she greeted me at the breakfast table with a 3-ring binder and her most professional smile. I've been doing some research, Sil, she announced, opening the binder to reveal printed articles about lottery winners. Did you know that 70% of lottery winners go bankrupt within 5 years? I poured myself coffee and settled in to watch the show. Is that so? Absolutely. The statistics are terrifying. Poor financial decisions, bad investments, family members taking advantage. It's a complete disaster for most people. She flipped through pages of highlighted text. That's why you need professional guidance. Family guidance. Brady appeared in the doorway, looking like he hadn't slept well. Mom, Tiffany's right. This is way too big for any one person to handle alone, especially someone your age. No offense, Sil, but managing $61 million requires expertise in tax law, investment strategy, estate planning. It's incredibly complex. I took a sip of coffee and studied their earnest faces. They'd clearly spent considerable time preparing this intervention, working out their talking points and strategy. It was almost touching how much effort they were putting into convincing me I was incompetent. You've given this a lot of thought, I observed. We care about you, Brady said. We don't want to see you make mistakes that could ruin your financial security. What kind of mistakes? Tiffany leaned forward, sensing an opening. Well, for instance, buying a house without understanding the tax implications, or making large purchases without considering how they affect your long-term cash flow, or trusting the wrong people with your money. The wrong people, I repeated. Like who? Like financial advisors who charge huge fees, or investment managers who push risky products, or family members who might try to take advantage of your generosity, Tiffany said, apparently without any sense of irony. I set down my coffee cup with deliberate precision. Tiffany, let me ask you something. When I moved in here, did you research the average cost of assisted living facilities in our area? Her eyes flickered with something that might have been guilt. What do you mean? I mean, did you look up what it would cost me to live somewhere else so you could price my room and board competitively? Brady shifted uncomfortably. Mom, we never thought of it that way. Because I did some research myself yesterday, I continued. The average cost of a private room in a quality assisted living facility around here is about $1,800 a month. That includes meals, housekeeping, activities, and medical support. Tiffany was very quiet now. You've been charging me $1,300 for a guest room and the privilege of doing my own housework, cooking, and child care. That's not family helping family. That's a business arrangement, and not even a fair one. It's not about money, Brady said desperately. It's about family, about staying together. Is it? Then why were you planning to move me to the basement? Neither of them had an answer for that. I closed Tiffany's binder and slid it back across the table. I appreciate your concern about lottery winners going bankrupt, but I think you're worried about the wrong person making poor financial decisions. What's that supposed to mean? Tiffany's professional composure was starting to crack. It means that in the past year, I've been subsidizing your lifestyle to the tune of about $20,000. Meanwhile, you've been planning home renovations, taking a non-disclosed vacation, and buying new furniture while charging your elderly mother-in-law market rate rent for substandard accommodations. Brady looked genuinely confused. Substandard? Mom? This is a nice house with no privacy, no independence, and a landlord who treats me like domestic help, I said. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small notebook. Let me share some numbers with you. Over the past year, I've paid you $1,500 in household expenses. I've provided approximately 1,200 hours of unpaid childcare. I've done roughly 800 loads of laundry, cooked about 300 meals, and cleaned this house from top to bottom every week. That's not fair, Brady protested. We've provided you with a home. You've provided me with room and board in exchange for payment and labor that exceeds what you provided by about $20,000, I stated clearly. That's not generosity, son. That's exploitation. The word hung in the air like smoke. But that's all about to change, I continued, standing up and smoothing my sweater. Where are you going? Tiffany asked sharply. To call my lawyer. The look of pure panic that crossed both their faces was something I'd remember for a long, long time. By Monday afternoon, news of my lottery win had spread through Willow Creek like wildfire. Joel at the Quick Stop had apparently put two and two together. The reckoning had begun. Brady was starting to panic. I could see it in the way he kept running his hands through his hair. Mom, you can't make decisions like this when you're emotional. This is too big, too complicated. You need help managing this kind of money. From who? You? Yes. From us. We're your family. I looked at my son. Really looked at him and saw a stranger. When had Brady become someone who thought I was too incompetent to manage my own affairs? When had he decided that being my child gave him rights to my choices? Brady, I said quietly, when your father, Robert, was dying, do you know what he made me promise? Both of them went very still. He made me promise that I wouldn't let anyone take advantage of my kindness. He said people would try, especially family, because they'd assume I was too polite or too weak to stand up for myself. He looked me in the eye and said, Sylvia, the moment they confuse your generosity with your weakness is the moment you must strike back with the strength of a freight train. He knew this day might come. The silence stretched until Tiffany finally cleared her throat, her voice strained. Syl, I think you're overreacting to what was basically a miscommunication. Am I? I repeated. I stood up, the lottery ticket tucked safely inside my wallet. A quiet, devastating weapon. I didn't need the binder anymore. The numbers were burned into my memory. Let me share some numbers with you again, I said, walking slowly toward the kitchen island. Over the past 3 years, since Robert passed, I've paid you $15,600 in household expenses just for the guest room. I've provided approximately 1,200 hours of unpaid childcare, done roughly 800 loads of laundry, cooked about 300 meals, and cleaned this house from top to bottom every single week. Tiffany's face was getting redder with each number. In return, I continued, you've given me a guest room that you're planning to relocate to the basement and the privilege of listening to you discuss my living arrangements as entertainment for your non-disclosed social event dinner parties. That's not fair, Brady protested, taking a desperate step forward. We've provided you with a home. You've provided me with room and board in exchange for payment and labor that exceeds what you provided by about $20,000, I stated, my voice calm and deadly precise. And let me remind you of the $1,800 figure. That is the cost of a private room in a quality assisted living facility that includes meals, housekeeping, activities, and medical support. You charged me $1,300 for a guest room and forced me to provide all those services myself. That's not generosity, son, I finished, the word hanging heavy in the air. That's exploitation. You saw a grieving widow and a secure Social Security check, and you built a business model around it. I think you should consider this, I continued, standing taller than either of them, despite my height. This arrangement has worked well for you, but it's about to end. Tiffany's eyes narrowed, the last vestiges of panic replaced by a sharp, calculating fury. You can't do this. We are entitled to a share of that ticket. We are your family. Robert would have wanted us to benefit. Robert wanted me to be strong, and he wanted me to protect his legacy, I retorted. And his legacy is not about subsidizing your expensive lifestyle. It's about dignity. I stood up and smoothed my skirt. I have the resources now to explore other options. Where are you going? Tiffany asked sharply, no longer bothering with the false sweetness. To finalize my plans, first I'm calling my attorney, a non-disclosed law firm, to establish a legal claim on the $61 million prize. Second, I am arranging for movers to retrieve my belongings tomorrow morning. Brady's voice was thin. Movers? Mom, we're your family. Where will you go? I paused at the door, the same back door I used to sneak into to avoid Ashley. I'm going to go wherever I want, I replied, a slow, satisfying smile spreading across my face. But let me give you a final piece of advice, free of charge. You too should start looking for a new place to live, because my first major purchase will be buying back my old house in Willow Creek, the white one with the black shutters. And when I do, I will be the one setting the moving date. You have 2 days before this story hits the local news. Think about how you want the town to view the parents who charged their elderly mother rent while planning to exile her to the basement. I stepped out of their house, closing the door firmly behind me. The look of utter devastation and dawning financial ruin on their faces was the most delicious moment of justice I had experienced in 65 years. The $61 million had secured my freedom, but the true prize was their terror. The reckoning had officially begun. By Monday afternoon, the news of my lottery win had spread through Willow Creek like wildfire. Joel at the Quick Stop had put 2 and 2 together after my dramatic pronouncements. The whispers in town were louder than the blizzard outside. I was at the office of Ms. Carla Vance, a non-disclosed law firm, a sharp, no-nonsense estate lawyer recommended by Robert's old business partner. I was dressed in my most respectable suit, holding the winning ticket and the little notebook containing my meticulously documented evidence of the exploitation. The ticket is legally sound, Ms. Reed, Carla confirmed, leaning back in her expensive leather chair. It's signed, the numbers match the drawing, and you purchased it with your own documented funds. It is entirely yours. You are the sole claimant of the $61 million jackpot. And if Brady and Tiffany try to claim some family right to it? I asked, watching the snow fall outside the window. Carla smiled, a thin, professional expression. They have no claim, Syl. Absolutely none. They could sue for what they call emotional damages or unjust enrichment. But based on the evidence you've provided regarding the $300 monthly payments and the labor hours, any attempt would be a frivolous, highly public relations disaster for them. Legally, they have exactly what you plan to leave them. Nothing. The lawyer pulled out a stack of documents. I've already initiated 2 key actions. First, contact with the Oregon Lottery Commission to establish the formal claim process. Second, this is an official notice to vacate for their property. While they technically own the house, it puts them on immediate notice that you will not be a source of income or labor for them any longer. Excellent, I said, a slow, quiet smile of pure satisfaction spreading across my face. I need you to arrange one more thing, Carla. I need to buy back my old house in Willow Creek immediately, the white one with black shutters. I want to make a formal, above-market value offer with a condition that it must be accepted within 48 hours. Monday evening. I packed the few boxes I owned. I didn't have much, mostly books, photo albums, and the urn containing Robert's ashes. I tucked the lottery ticket safely into the inside pocket of Robert's old hunting jacket. Tiffany found me downstairs in the kitchen, attempting a disastrous last-ditch effort at reconciliation. She was wearing an apron over her clothes and flipping burnt pancakes, something I hadn't seen her do since I moved in. "Syl, honey, listen," she said, practically pushing the scorched pancakes at me. "Brady and I talked all night. We realized we've been under so much pressure. That $1,300 a month? It was never about rent. It was a placeholder, a security deposit for when we built your luxurious new basement suite. And the 1,200 hours of unpaid childcare and domestic labor?" I asked, looking her dead in the eye. "That was family. We're family. We love you. We want to manage the money together to protect you." Tiffany's voice cracked. Brady rushed in, tears welling up in his eyes, a classic manipulation tactic. "Mom, please. We're terrified. This money changes who we are, but you're still our mother. You can't let us lose everything over a simple misunderstanding." I stood up, holding a small box containing Robert's service medals. "You're absolutely right, Brady. This money changes who I am. It changes me from a burden into a benefactor. And as a benefactor, I have standards." I pulled an envelope from my pocket, the legal document prepared by Carla. "This is a notice of termination and intent to vacate," I announced. "As of noon tomorrow, I am officially terminating our business arrangement and moving out of the guest room. I have hired movers from a non-disclosed moving company to retrieve my property at 11:30 a.m. Since you are so concerned about the housework, I'm sure you'll handle all the future housekeeping and childcare yourselves." Brady's jaw dropped. "You can't just leave." "I'm not just leaving," I said, walking to the back door, putting on Robert's coat. "I'm retiring from your employment." I paused at the door. "One final thing, since we are talking business. You and Tiffany wanted me to go die somewhere else because you thought you had $61 million, and I only had my pathetic pension cash." Their faces turned the color of those burnt pancakes. They knew their words had been overheard. "I won't call the police," I continued, "but I will make one final offer of family guidance. I will buy your share of this house, the house Robert and I saved for, the house where you grew up, at its current market value, contingent on you being completely gone within 30 days. "Why would you do that?" Tiffany stammered, confusion replacing fear. "Because I want to paint it white again, with black shutters. And I want to set up a foundation for elder financial independence in Robert's name. This house will be its first office. It will be the place where I help other victims of familial exploitation." I stepped out into the crisp December air. I turned back one last time. "And one more thing," I called out, a genuine, powerful laugh escaping me. "I'm not leaving you a single penny." Brady was starting to panic. I could see it in the way he kept running his hands through his hair. "Mom, you can't make decisions like this when you're emotional. This is too big, too complicated." You need help managing this kind of money. From who? You, I challenged, still standing at the kitchen doorway, my coat on, ready to leave. From us? We're your family. We share things. We support each other. I almost laughed out loud. Support each other? Like when you supported me by charging me $300 a month to live in your guest room? Or when you supported me by planning to move me to the basement? Tiffany stepped forward, her hands clasped tightly, adopting her most manipulative, earnest expression. Syl, darling, please, let's not let a piece of paper destroy a family. Yes, the ticket is in your name, but Robert, your beloved husband, he raised Brady to be a family man. He would have wanted us to handle this windfall together, to make sure you were cared for properly, without the burden of managing all that complexity yourself. You're absolutely right, I said sweetly. We do support each other, which is why I've been supporting you with my Social Security check every month while doing all your housework and childcare for free. And since you're so concerned about my welfare, I'll tell you exactly what I've concluded. Brady looked truly desperate. Mom, we were wrong. We apologize. We'll tear up the financial agreement. You can have your room back. We'll hire a maid. You won't pay a cent. Just please, let us help you manage this. $61 million. It's too much risk to handle alone. Risk? I raised an eyebrow. The only risk I see is letting the people who financially exploited me gain access to my entire life savings. I've been thinking about your point on support, Brady, I continued, walking back toward the center of the kitchen and pulling out my small notebook one last time. Let me share the true support numbers with you. Over the past year, I've paid you $1,500 in household expenses. I've provided approximately 200 hours of unpaid childcare. I've done roughly 800 loads of laundry, cooked about 300 meals, and cleaned this house from top to bottom every week. Tiffany's face was crimson. That's not fair. We gave you a home. You gave me room and board in exchange for payment and labor that exceeds what you provided by about $20,000, I stated clearly. That's not generosity, son. That's exploitation. And since you brought up my age and the need for care, let's go back to my research. I pointed toward the discarded financial binder on the counter. The average cost of a private room in a quality-assisted living facility around here is about $1,800 a month. That includes meals, housekeeping, activities, and medical support. You were charging me $300 for a guest room and forcing me to provide all those services myself while planning to move me to a damp, isolated basement. You weren't providing me with a home, Brady. You were providing me with room and board in exchange for payment and labor that was not only unfair, but was designed to keep me dependent and quiet. And now, I finished, the quiet devastation in my voice silencing their protests, I have the resources to explore proper options. Options that involve dignity, respect, and absolutely no need for your family guidance. I am very serious about calling the lottery office first thing tomorrow morning to claim my prize, I said, placing the keys to my temporary room on the counter. And I am equally serious about securing my own place. You won't have to worry about me interrupting your non-disclosed social event dinner parties anymore. Where will you go? Brady asked, his voice cracking with fear. We're your family. I'm going to reclaim my legacy, I declared. Remember the house Robert and I shared for 40 years? The white one with the black shutters in Willow Creek? Both their expressions shifted from fear to a dawning, terrible comprehension. I have instructed my attorney, Ms. Carla Vance, to place an immediate, above-market value cash offer on that property, I continued, a cold smile touching my lips. The current owners will accept it. They will be notified tonight. You can't do that, Tiffany shrieked. That money belongs to The ticket belongs to me, and the house will belong to me, I interrupted, cutting her off cleanly. I am buying it back to paint it white again, and I am establishing the Robert Reed Foundation for Elder Independence within its walls. I paused at the door, the final crushing blow ready. This house is now officially on the market, I stated, gesturing around their expensive colonial. I am making a one-time offer to purchase your home at the current assessed value, contingent on you being completely gone within 30 days. You can use the proceeds to find somewhere else to live. I opened the back door, letting the cold December air rush in. You wanted me to go die somewhere else because you thought you'd won $61 million. You were wrong. I won the $61 million, and I am not dying. I am living, and I am ensuring that you too will live with the consequences of your greed. I am not leaving you a penny. Goodbye. I stepped out and closed the door, leaving Brady and Tiffany frozen in the chaos and financial ruin of their kitchen. The ultimate reckoning was now officially underway. 2 weeks later, the news conference was held at the Oregon Lottery headquarters in Salem. I stood at the podium, looking elegant and composed in a new velvet suit, Carla Vance by my side. I had decided to accept the lump sum payment, $32.5 million after taxes, a number that alone dwarfed anything Brady or Tiffany could ever hope to earn. I'm Sylvia Reed, and yes, I said to the sea of cameras, my voice clear and unwavering. I am the winner of the $61 million jackpot. The reporters shouted questions about retirement, yachts, and travel. I held up my hand for silence. I'm not here to talk about yachts. I'm here to talk about dignity. I spoke honestly about the 3 years I had spent living with my son and his wife. I spoke about the initial generosity that turned into an increasingly onerous set of duties, the putter $300 rent that consumed my Social Security, and the 200 hours of unpaid labor. I detailed the plans to move me to the basement and their heartless dismissal of my plight. When I won this money, I didn't just win financial freedom, I concluded, my voice ringing with authority. I won the right to stand up for every senior who is treated like a burden instead of a blessing, who is forced to trade their security for the bare minimum of lodging. They called it family support. My lawyer, Ms. Vance, and I call it exploitation. I never named Brady or Tiffany, but I provided enough specific details about the expensive colonial home, the 2 children, and the non-disclosed athleisure brand clothes to make it clear to anyone in Willow Creek exactly who I was talking about. The local reporter from a non-disclosed local news channel was already furiously texting. That is why I am announcing the creation of the Robert Reed Foundation for Elder Independence, I declared, my voice trembling only slightly with emotion. This foundation will be funded by a substantial portion of this prize and dedicated to providing legal and financial resources to seniors who have been exploited by their own families. The next 24 hours were a catastrophe for Brady and Tiffany. My press conference went viral in Willow Creek and quickly escalated to regional news. The specifics I provided, the $2,300 rent, the live-in help who pays us remark, became meme-worthy quotes. Brady was cornered by colleagues at his office, a non-disclosed corporation. The initial excitement that his mother had won $61 million dissolved into whispers and outright ridicule as my story. The story of his betrayal unfolded. His attempt to portray me as an incompetent old woman who needed help managing the funds had completely backfired. Tiffany's situation was worse. Her detailed planning of the $2,300 rent and 200 hours of labor, the very numbers I used in my little notebook, became legal evidence that she ran an exploitation scheme costing her a vital consulting contract at her job. That evening, I got a call from Carla Vance. "They're panicking, Sil. They just called me, screaming about defamation and slander." "Are they suing?" I asked, calm as ice. "They threatened it. I told them that truth is an absolute defense against defamation and that their bank records regarding the $15,600 in rent are a matter of public record. I also reminded them that they are now under a strict 30-day timeline to accept your above-market offer for the house before you take back your beloved White House." "Good," I said. "They learned the hard way that when you monetize your mother, the financial records cut both ways." Despite the public shaming and the impending financial ruin of my son and daughter-in-law, my mission was always about Robert's legacy and the future of my grandchildren, Emma and Jake. I met with a specialized estate planner to finalize my true act of benevolence. I am establishing separate, irrevocable college trusts for my grandchildren, Emma and Jake, I instructed the planner. The initial funding will be substantial, ensuring they have the opportunity for a debt-free college education. "That is very generous, Ms. Reed," the planner noted. "Who will be the trustee?" "An independent third party, entirely unaffiliated with Brady or Tiffany," I stated firmly. "The terms will explicitly state that the funds are to be managed by the third party and can only be accessed by the children when they turn 18 and matriculate at an accredited university. Brady and Tiffany are to have absolutely no control, no access, and no influence over these funds. Ever." "Understood," the planner said, nodding at the seriousness in my voice. "A true act of protection." I smiled, thinking of Robert's face. This is not just for their education. This is so they will grow up knowing that even though their parents chose greed, their grandmother chose love and responsibility. A love that is armed with $61 million and an army of lawyers. The ultimate justice was not just punishing the ungrateful, it was securing the innocence of those caught in the crossfire. The day after the press conference, Brady and Tiffany called Carla Vance's office, desperately trying to open negotiations. They had nowhere to turn. No other lawyer in Willow Creek would touch a case involving a son suing his mother for lottery money after a public exposure of elder exploitation. They sat across from Carla, the two of them looking like their entire business model had just gone up in flames. "We need a settlement," Brady pleaded, his voice hoarse. "This public humiliation is ruining my career at a non-disclosed corporation. Tiffany lost a major client. We'll agree to the notice to vacate. We just need a percentage. 10%? That's $6.1 million. It's fair for family." Tiffany chimed in, managing a weak attempt at a power stance. "We helped her. We provided housing. We deserve compensation for the resources we contributed." Carla leaned forward, placing a thick folder labeled Reed versus Reed, Financial Accounting, on the table. "Your mother is not seeking a settlement. She is seeking the return of dignity and the reclamation of her legacy," Carla stated flatly. "As for compensation, your mother's meticulous records show she paid you $15,600 in rent and provided at least $20,000 worth of labor and services. She was your financial benefactor and unpaid staff. You owe her money, not the other way around." "And the children," Brady seized on the last emotional straw. "She can't just cut out her grandchildren." "She hasn't," Carla corrected, a small, knowing smile on her lips. "She has established two separate, irrevocable college trusts for Emma and Jake, managed by an independent trustee. The funds are substantial and protected entirely from you two. Their future is secure, thanks to their grandmother. Your influence, however, is not." "This is punitive! This is cruel!" Tiffany shrieked. Carla simply pushed a document across the table. "This is a purchase agreement. Your mother is offering the full current market value for this property, contingent on your departure within 30 days. Accept the offer, and you walk away with the equity of your home. Decline, and she will proceed with buying her old home, and you will be left with no source of income and a hostile public. 30 days later. The air was cold, but the sun was bright. I stood across the street from my son and daughter-in-law's sprawling colonial, watching the movers from a non-disclosed national moving company load the last pieces of furniture. Brady was standing on the lawn, looking utterly defeated, his golf shirt replaced by a worn sweater. He approached me, hesitating at the curb. "Mom, we signed the papers," he mumbled, his eyes avoiding mine. "We accepted the offer. We're moving into an apartment downtown." "I see," I replied, my voice cool. "I just want you to know, we miss you. Emma and Jake miss you. They don't understand." "They don't have to," I said. "They are protected. Their grandmother ensured that. When you decided to charge your mother rent and plan her exile to the basement, you decided to forfeit the right to my generosity. And you decided to teach your children the price of greed." Tiffany walked past, carrying a small designer handbag, refusing to make eye contact. She got into a small sedan, not the high-end SUV, which had clearly been sold off. "I hope you find peace, Brady," I said, a final note of clinical farewell. "I hope you learn the difference between inheritance and exploitation." He nodded, a single silent tear running down his cheek, a tear that finally felt genuine, but far too late. He climbed into the car, and they drove away from the house Robert and I had worked our lives to help them buy. I watched the car disappear. The house was theirs no longer. It was a blank slate, ready for its new anonymous owners. I didn't waste any time. The closing on the original house, the white one with the black shutters, happened the same afternoon. I personally supervised the repainting project. The trendy gray was stripped away, and the house gleamed in a pristine white with a fresh coat of dignified black on the shutters, exactly as Robert had always intended. I sat on the front porch swing, sipping tea, watching the quiet street of my neighborhood, the street where Brady used to build snow forts and where Robert taught him to ride his first bike. A small, elegant brass plaque had been affixed next to the front door: Robert Reed Foundation for Elder Independence. Carla Vance called, her voice full of satisfaction. "Congratulations, Syl. The transfer is complete. The foundation is officially registered. You have a beautiful headquarters and a beautiful home. You are also now a multimillionaire who is actively helping dozens of seniors in Willow Creek who were inspired by your story to leave toxic situations." "The numbers finally worked out in my favor, Carla," I replied, feeling a profound sense of peace. "I lost a son, but I gained my dignity, my home, and my purpose. Robert's promise is finally fulfilled." I looked out at the street, a final cold truth settling in. The $61 million had secured my freedom, but the greatest victory was making sure that the very words Brady and Tiffany used to dismiss me, the exploitation, the greed, the lack of respect, became the foundation for my formidable, powerful second act. The reckoning was complete. It had taken 3 months, but the transformation of the house was complete. The trendy gray paint was gone, replaced by the dignified white with black shutters. Inside, the house was modern, but warm, designed to serve as both my residence and the headquarters for the Robert Reed Foundation for Elder Independence. I was waiting on the front porch when my first official client arrived. Eleanor. She was 72, frail, and carrying 2 battered suitcases. Eleanor had been living with her niece and nephew-in-law in the next town over paying them a considerable portion of her retirement annuity for a drafty, unheated sunroom and the promise of family care. When they won a small local prize, a non-disclosed local lottery, they promptly told Eleanor to find somewhere else, as they needed the sunroom for a new hot tub. "Welcome, Eleanor," I said, shaking her hand firmly. "This room is fully heated, has its own bathroom, and the rent is precisely $0. Eleanor burst into quiet tears of relief. I saw your story on the news, Mrs. Reed. I never thought I could fight back. I didn't know where to go." "You go here," I said, leading her inside. "This is a place of dignity. This is where we fight back." The foundation was already up and running. Carla Vance had helped me hire a small, dedicated staff of part-time paralegals and social workers. My life was no longer consumed by cleaning Brady and Tiffany's counters. It was now dedicated to helping others reclaim their own. "We will help you reclaim every penny of that annuity they took, Eleanor," I promised. "And we will find you a permanent, safe residence. Consider this your base of operations." The satisfaction I felt was immense, a pure, clean sense of purpose that made the $61 million feel completely secondary. The public scrutiny on Brady and Tiffany was relentless. They were not only pariahs in Willow Creek, but their financial reality was crumbling. Because the Robert Reed Foundation was active and vocal, the media stayed interested in the local family, whose greed inspired it. I saw a local article in a non-disclosed local newspaper detailing their current situation. They had accepted the fair market price for their house, but with no income, the large mortgage payment and their lifestyle debt quickly drained the equity. They had moved into a small, overpriced rental apartment. Brady was struggling at a non-disclosed corporation due to the public humiliation, and Tiffany had not been able to secure new consulting contracts. The headline was poetic: "Exploitation Unmasked. Local couple linked to Lottery Winners Foundation forced to downsize." The true sting of my victory was the knowledge that I had ensured their children were financially secure, while the parents themselves were left to deal with the consequences of their financial incompetence and moral failure. They couldn't access the grandchildren's trusts, and they couldn't access my money. They were left with nothing but their debt and their reputation. I realized then that my revenge wasn't just about my freedom. It was about the restoration of my values and the values Robert cherished. I was sitting in my new library, a room full of books and photos of Robert, when I made a critical call. "Hello, it's Sylvia Reed. I'd like to speak to the trustee of the Emma and Jake Reed Irrevocable Trusts," I said. The trustee, a woman named Janice, quickly came on the line. "Ms. Reed, everything is secure and growing well. The investments are conservative, just as you instructed." "Excellent. I have one further instruction," I said. "I want to arrange a specific gift for my grandchildren. It has to be an annual non-monetary gift, something that teaches them independence." "A non-monetary gift?" Janice asked, puzzled. "Yes. Starting next month, I want the trust to pay for them to attend a high-quality summer program focusing on financial literacy and community service. Not luxury camps. I want them to learn how money works, how to budget, and how to give back to those less fortunate." "That is certainly a unique and responsible use of trust funds," Janice agreed. "They need to learn that their parents' mistakes are not their destiny," I said, looking at a photo of Emma and Jake smiling broadly. "They need to learn that true wealth is earned through contribution, not exploitation. This is my final investment in them." I hung up the phone. I hadn't communicated directly with Brady or Tiffany since the day they drove away. The legal barrier was firm, but I was still their grandmother. I was still teaching them, not through words, but through the structure of my victory. I had not abandoned my grandchildren. I had liberated them. I picked up the lottery ticket, now framed and hanging discreetly in my office, a permanent trophy. It was no longer a ticket. It was a certificate of independence. The reckoning had secured my freedom, and now it was securing a future built on honor, not greed. A year had passed since I claimed the $61 million jackpot. My life was no longer a silent existence in a guest room. It was a legacy. I was sitting in my newly organized library at the White House with black shutters, writing in a journal. I wasn't just funding the Robert Reed Foundation. I was its driving force, its voice, and its face. We had successfully helped dozens of seniors escape similar situations of financial exploitation, often at the hands of their own family. I received a call from Carla Vance, my attorney. "Sylvia, did you receive the financial update on Brady and Tiffany?" Carla asked. I did. They are still in the rental apartment, and Brady had to accept a much lower-paying job after leaving a non-disclosed corporation. They are struggling. They are, but I want you to know this. They sold the small sedan they bought after selling the SUV, a non-disclosed vehicle brand, and are living frugally. They are learning to live within their actual means. I sighed. That was the goal, Carla. I never wanted them to be impoverished. I just wanted them to be realistic and respectful. Carla paused. Your revenge was an act of reconstruction. You didn't just take back the money. You took back your home, your dignity, and your purpose. And thanks to you, Emma and Jake are excelling in their summer programs, learning about financial management and community service. I looked at the photo of Robert on my desk. Robert taught me that kindness must be armed. I just ensured that my armament was greater than their avarice. One quiet Saturday afternoon, I was sitting on the porch swing. I noticed an old, unremarkable truck pull up down the street. Brady stepped out. He wore a worn sweater and looked thinner. He didn't approach the porch. He stood outside the picket fence, gazing at the White House with the black shutters, the symbol of both his failure and my recovery. I stood and walked to the fence, facing my son. "Hello, Mom," he said softly. "Hello, Brady. I thought you'd moved out of town." "We couldn't. My job is still here. I just wanted to look at the house again." He swallowed hard. "You made it exactly the way Dad loved it." A long silence settled between us. Finally, Brady spoke the words I had waited for. Not an apology, but an acknowledgement. "I was wrong, Mom. Tiffany and I. We thought you were a burden. We thought you owed us. We didn't see you. We just saw a Social Security check and a free housekeeper." "And what do you see now?" I asked. Brady looked at me, his eyes revealing deep fatigue and loss. "I see a woman who saved her grandchildren from financial ruin. I see the woman who taught us a lesson we should have learned long ago. Greed has a cost." He didn't beg for money. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just acknowledged the truth. "We sold everything to clear our debts. I'm learning to live simply, Mom. I'm starting over." "I never wanted you to suffer, Brady," I said. All anger gone, replaced by weary closure. "I only wanted you to learn." He nodded, turned, and walked toward the small truck. "Brady," I called. He paused. "The children are doing well. They're both thriving." He managed a slight, genuine smile. "Thank you, Mom," he said. It was the most honest gratitude he had offered in years. 5 years later, I was 70 years old. The Robert Reed Foundation had grown from a small office in my home into a recognized regional organization, with outreach in 3 different states. I had purchased a large office building in downtown Willow Creek and moved the foundation's headquarters there. At the dedication ceremony, I stood at the podium, my hand resting on a large check symbolizing the foundation's new endowment. When I stood here 5 years ago, I wasn't just a lottery winner, I told the crowd. I was a victim, but I made a choice. I would not let my pain become my destiny. I let it become my mission. I spoke about Emma and Jake, who were now thriving in top universities, fully funded by their trusts and actively involved in the Foundation's community service. I spoke about Eleanor and hundreds of others who had reclaimed their dignity. People ask me, I concluded, why I didn't travel the world or buy a yacht. My answer is simple. $61 million bought me something far more valuable: justice and purpose. After the ceremony, I returned to the White House with black shutters. I sat on the porch swing and took out the framed lottery ticket. It wasn't a ticket anymore. It was a certificate of independence. Brady and Tiffany taught me that kindness without boundaries is a vulnerability. And I taught them that exploitation always has a price they had to pay with patience and hard work. I was finally at peace. The battle was over. I had reclaimed my home, protected my grandchildren, and saved others. Robert would be proud. What an incredible journey of justice from Sylvia Reed. She didn't just win the lottery, she won her freedom, her purpose, and a powerful new legacy. The Robert Reed Foundation stands as a testament to the fact that exploitation has a cost. What did you think of Brady and Tiffany's final reckoning? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, we want to hear your story next. Send your ultimate story of revenge, transformation, or justice to Women's Stories Segmail. Come for a chance to be featured on The Reckoning, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.